All right, everyone get ready, because today we're going to do a deep dive into dopamine.
Yeah.
You know all about dopamine, right?
Right.
The happiness hormone. But it's a lot more than that.
Yeah, it really is.
We're going to uncover how it really affects you and how you can make it work for you.
I think what's really fascinating is that it's involved in so many processes beyond just fleeting happiness.
Yeah.
It's really about the drive to achieve,
Right.
the focus that you bring to tasks, the thrill of learning something new.
Okay, so it's not just that I got a cookie feeling, but like the whole journey of wanting the cookie, working towards the cookie, and then finally getting the cookie.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Dopamine is a neurotransmitter, a chemical messenger that sends signals between nerve cells in your brain.
Okay.
So think of it as like this complex communication network, and dopamine is that key signal that's influencing how you feel, think, and behave.
So every time I procrastinate on a big project, is that my dopamine system being a little lazy?
It's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
You see, dopamine is all about motivation and reward.
Okay. It's what pushes you towards things that your brain perceives as beneficial.
Got it.
For example, research has shown that even the anticipation of a reward can trigger dopamine release, which in turn motivates you to work towards that reward.
Interesting. So even just like thinking about achieving something can give me a dopamine boost.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, that means that you can actually leverage this knowledge.
Okay.
By setting clear goals and breaking them down into smaller, manageable steps, you're creating a series of mini rewards.
Okay.
Each time you achieve one of those steps, you get a little hit of dopamine, which keeps you motivated and moving forward.
So instead of being overwhelmed by like a massive to-do list, I should be breaking it down and celebrating all those smaller wins along the way.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
You're essentially hacking your own dopamine system
I like that.
to work in your favor.
Okay. I'm starting to see how understanding all this can be like really beneficial in my everyday life.
What else should I know about how dopamine influences my actions?
Well, consider this.
Oh.
Dopamine is also deeply involved in decision-making.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Your brain is constantly weighing potential rewards and risks, and dopamine plays a key role in guiding you towards choices that it perceives as beneficial.
So when I'm debating between hitting the gym or the snooze button, my dopamine system is basically fighting a battle in my brain.
You could say that, yeah.
Interesting.
Research suggests that the prefrontal cortex, a part of your brain that's heavily involved in planning and decision-making, is rich in dopamine receptors.
Okay.
So the strength of your dopamine signals in this area can actually influence how you evaluate choices and make decisions.
Wow. I never realized how much this one brain chemical was involved in my daily life.
Right.
But what about creativity? I've heard that dopamine plays a role there too.
Absolutely.
Is there a connection?
Yes. Dopamine isn't just about seeking rewards, it's also about exploring the unknown and making new connections.
Wow.
When you experience something novel or have a sudden burst of insight, that's often accompanied by a surge of dopamine.
So that aha moment I get when I finally solve a tricky problem, that's a dopamine rush.
Exactly.
Right.
And that feeling of excitement and motivation pushes you to explore further, leading to even more creative breakthroughs. It's a beautiful cycle of discovery and reward.
This raises an important question for me.
Okay.
Knowing all of this, are there things I can do to intentionally boost my dopamine levels and tap into that creative power?
There are definitely things you can do to support healthy dopamine production and harness its power for good.
Okay.
And one of the most effective ways is through exercise.
I was hoping you'd say that.
Yeah.
I always feel so good after a good workout.
Right.
What's the connection between exercise and dopamine?
Well, it's not just about that endorphin rush you hear about.
Right.
Studies have shown that exercise actually increases dopamine production in the brain and improves the sensitivity of dopamine receptors. This means that your brain becomes more responsive to dopamine, leading to enhanced mood, motivation, and cognitive function.
So it's not just about feeling good in the moment. It's actually creating long-term changes in how my brain responds to dopamine.
Precisely.
Interesting.
And the benefits go beyond just mood. Research has shown that regular exercise can improve attention, learning, and even protect against cognitive decline as we age, all thanks to dopamine.
Wow, that's really making me rethink my workout routine.
Yeah.
Now, beyond exercise, what's another powerful way to influence my dopamine system?
Well, another powerful way is through your diet.
Probably.
You see, dopamine is synthesized from an amino acid called tyrosine.
Right, you mentioned tyrosine earlier.
Right.
So are you saying that eating certain foods can actually increase dopamine production in my brain?
Exactly.
Right.
Foods rich in tyrosine, like almonds, bananas, fish, and chicken, provide the building blocks your brain needs to create dopamine.
So I should swap those sugary snacks for a handful of almonds if I want a dopamine boost.
It's not about eliminating treats entirely, but about making sure that you're nourishing your brain with the nutrients it needs to function optimally.
Right.
Remember, a healthy dopamine system is essential for everything from motivation and focus to creativity and emotional well-being.
This is all so fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm starting to see how everything is connected.
It really is.
But we've been talking a lot about boosting dopamine.
Right?
Is there ever a case of having too much dopamine?
That's a great question, and it leads us to the other side of the dopamine coin.
Yep.
The potential for addiction.
Okay, now things are getting interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me more. How does dopamine play a role in addiction?
It's really fascinating how our brains are wired, to seek pleasure and avoid pain.
Right.
And dopamine is right at the heart of that whole reward system.
Right. We were talking about how dopamine kind of pushes us towards things that feel good,
Yeah.
like achieving goals or experiencing something new. But how does that turn into something potentially harmful like addiction?
Well, think about those activities that trigger like a quick and intense dopamine release.
Okay.
Things like scrolling through social media,
Right.
playing video games, or even indulging in certain foods.
Yeah.
They're designed to make us feel good, which
Mhm.
keeps us coming back for more.
Okay. I think we've all experienced that mindless scroll through social media, right?
Yeah.
You should stop, but it just feels so good in the moment.
Exactly, and that's the danger.
Yeah.
These activities can hijack our dopamine system.
Okay.
When we engage in them too frequently, our brains start to adapt.
What does that mean exactly, like what's happening in my brain when I get hooked on something like that?
Essentially, your brain becomes less sensitive to dopamine over time.
Oh,
So you
yeah.
need more and more of that stimulating activity to achieve the same level of pleasure you once felt.
Yeah.
It's like your dopamine receptors become a bit numb to the usual dose.
So it's like needing a stronger cup of coffee to get that same caffeine kick in the morning.
That's a great analogy.
Okay.
And this is why breaking free from addictive behaviors can be so challenging.
Right.
It's not simply a matter of willpower.
Yeah.
There are actual physiological changes happening in the brain.
So that makes it even more important to understand this whole dopamine system, right?
Absolutely.
If we can recognize those early warning signs, maybe we can prevent those unhealthy habits from taking root in the first place.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
The more we understand how our brains work, the better equipped we are to make healthy choices.
Right.
And it's not about demonizing dopamine.
Right.
Remember, it's essential for so many positive things.
It is.
It's all about finding that balance.
So it's not about like eliminating dopamine, but being more mindful of how we're getting it.
Exactly. We want to make sure we're getting our dopamine hits from healthy,
Yeah.
sustainable sources that contribute to our overall well-being.
So things like exercise, spending time with loved ones, achieving goals, pursuing our passions.
You nailed it. These are the activities that provide lasting fulfillment and genuine happiness, not just those fleeting moments of pleasure.
Yeah.
It's about finding joy in the journey, not just the destination.
I'm with you on that, but let's get practical here.
Okay.
What are some concrete steps I can take to build a healthier relationship with dopamine, especially if I feel like I might be relying on those quick hits a little too much?
Well, one powerful technique we've touched on briefly is dopamine fasting.
Dopamine fasting, can you break that down for me?
Yeah.
What does that actually involve?
It's about consciously choosing to abstain from those activities that trigger that excessive dopamine release for a specific period of time.
Okay.
This could mean taking a break from social media, video games, sugary snacks, excessive caffeine, anything that you feel might be overstimulating your reward system.
So it's not about completely depriving myself, but about giving my brain a chance to like recalibrate.
Exactly. It's like a mini vacation for your mind.
Okay.
A dopamine fast isn't about punishment. It's about creating space to reconnect with yourself, explore new hobbies, and rediscover those activities that bring you genuine joy without that intense dopamine rush.
Okay, I can see how that would be beneficial, but how long should a dopamine fast last? Is there like an ideal time frame?
That's a great question, and the answer is it depends. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
Some people might find that a few hours is enough to feel refreshed, while others might benefit from a full day or even longer.
So it's about experimenting and finding what works best for me, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The key is to pay attention to your body and mind.
Right.
If you're feeling restless or irritable, it might be a sign that you need to ease back into things gradually.
Okay.
And remember, consistency is key.
Yeah.
Even short, regular dopamine fasts can make a big difference over time.
I'm definitely going to give that a try. It sounds like a good way to break those unhealthy patterns and regain some control. What are some other strategies for managing dopamine effectively?
Another crucial aspect is your environment. Surround yourself with people who encourage your healthy habits
Right.
and minimize your exposure to triggers that could lead you down the wrong path.
So if I'm trying to cut back on social media, maybe I should spend less time with friends who are constantly glued to their phones.
You get the idea.
Yeah.
It's about being mindful of the influences around you and making conscious choices about who and what you allow into your space.
This makes total sense. It's like building a support system for my dopamine health.
Exactly. And that support system extends beyond your social circle. Think about your physical environment as well.
Okay.
Make sure your home and workspace are set up in a way that supports your goals.
Oh.
Keep those tempting snacks out of sight. Create a dedicated workspace that's free from distractions. Little changes like these can make a big difference.
Okay. I'm starting to see how all of these pieces fit together. It's not just about willpower. It's about creating an environment that sets me up for success.
You're absolutely right. And here's another powerful tip.
Mm-hmm.
Focus on building healthy habits that offer intrinsic rewards.
Hold on. Can you explain what you mean by intrinsic rewards?
Yeah, it's about finding activities that are enjoyable and fulfilling in themselves, not just because they offer an external reward or dopamine hit. Think about things like pursuing a hobby you're passionate about, learning a new skill just for the joy of it, or spending time in nature.
So instead of seeking that dopamine rush from external sources, I should focus on those activities that make me feel good from the inside out.
Precisely.
I love that shift in perspective.
Yeah.
It's about finding those things that truly light me up and make me feel alive.
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah.
It's about creating a life that's rich with experiences that bring you joy, fulfillment, and a sense of accomplishment.
This has been an incredible journey so far. I feel like we've really explored the complexities of dopamine,
We really have.
but I have a feeling there's still more to uncover, right?
You're absolutely right.
Right.
We've covered a lot of ground, but we've just scratched the surface of how you can optimize your dopamine levels to achieve your goals and live a more fulfilling life.
Okay, now I'm really intrigued. What else can I learn about harnessing the power of dopamine? Okay, I'm ready to unlock like the next level of dopamine mastery. What other secrets does this amazing brain chemical hold?
Well, we've talked a lot about the potential downsides of dopamine, especially when it comes to addiction. But remember, dopamine itself isn't the villain here.
Right.
It's all about how we manage it and harness its power for good.
That makes sense. So how can we optimize our dopamine levels in a way that supports our goals and enhances our well-being? Give me those pro tips.
One powerful technique is to leverage the power of anticipation.
Anticipation.
You see, dopamine isn't just released when we achieve a reward, but also in the moments leading up to it.
Oh, that's interesting. So like the excitement and anticipation I feel when I'm like looking forward to something can actually trigger dopamine.
Precisely. Think about the feeling you get when you're planning a vacation, looking forward to a concert, or even just anticipating a delicious meal.
Yeah.
That buzz of excitement that's dopamine at work, motivating you to take action and move towards that reward.
Yeah. I can definitely relate to that. Sometimes the anticipation is almost as good as the actual event itself. So how can I use this to my advantage?
By setting clear goals and breaking them down into smaller, achievable steps.
Right.
You create a series of mini anticipations.
Okay.
Each time you complete one of those steps, you get a little hit of dopamine, which keeps you motivated and moving forward. It's
Right.
like creating a dopamine-powered roadmap to your goals.
So it's not just about the end goal, but about savoring those little wins along the way. Each step becomes something to look forward to.
Exactly. And this can make a huge difference in your overall motivation and enjoyment of the journey.
Yeah.
You're essentially turning what might feel like a long, arduous task into a series of exciting milestones.
I love that. It's like gamifying my own life. To keep those dopamine levels up, what other strategies can I use to kind of make dopamine work for me?
Well, another key factor is novelty.
Novelty.
Our brains are wired to crave new experiences. When we encounter something novel, it triggers a surge of dopamine, piquing our curiosity and sparking our creativity.
So it's not just about like chasing those big life-changing events, but also about finding those little moments of newness in our everyday lives.
Absolutely. It could be something as simple as trying a new recipe, exploring a different part of your city, or even just listening to a new genre of music.
Right.
The key is to break out of your routine and introduce those elements of surprise and discovery.
This is all starting to make a lot of sense. It's about being intentional and mindful about creating opportunities for dopamine to work its magic in positive ways.
You're getting it.
Yeah.
It's about being the architect of your own dopamine experience. And here's another powerful tool you can use.
Okay.
Challenge.
Challenge, really. I usually try to avoid challenges whenever possible. They kind of stress me out.
I hear you, but hear me out on this one.
Okay.
When we push ourselves outside of our comfort zones and tackle challenges, it triggers a surge of dopamine that makes us feel alive and capable. Think about that sense of accomplishment you feel after conquering something difficult that's dopamine rewarding you for your effort.
So that feeling of I did it is actually like a dopamine high five.
Exactly. It's like your brain is saying, good job, you stepped up, you faced the challenge, and you came out on top. And that feeling motivates you to keep striving for growth and pushing your boundaries.
Okay, that's actually pretty motivating. So instead of shying away from challenges, I should kind of embrace them as opportunities for growth and those sweet dopamine boosts.
Precisely. Of course, it's important to choose challenges that are appropriate for your skill level and interests. You don't want to set yourself up for failure.
Right.
But finding that sweet spot where you're stretching yourself without feeling overwhelmed can be incredibly rewarding.
That's about finding that Goldilocks zone of challenge.
Exactly.
Not too easy, not too hard, just right.
Exactly. And here's another tip to keep in mind. Surround yourself with inspiration.
Inspiration.
Remember, dopamine is highly influenced by our environment. When we surround ourselves with people, ideas, and experiences that inspire us, it creates a fertile ground for dopamine to flourish.
So that could mean like following inspiring people on social media, reading books that expand my mind, or attending events that spark my creativity.
You got it. It's about creating a dopamine-rich ecosystem that nourishes your mind, body, and soul.
I love that analogy. It's like cultivating a garden of dopamine-boosting activities.
Beautifully put. And remember, it's not just about external sources of inspiration.
Okay.
It's also about tapping into your own inner wellspring of creativity and passion.
So making time for those activities that light me up and make me feel truly alive, like painting, writing, dancing, whatever it is that brings me joy.
Exactly. Make space for those activities in your life.
Yeah.
Nurture them. They are the key to unlocking your full potential and experiencing true fulfillment.
Wow. This has been an incredible deep dive.
Ah.
I feel like we've explored every nook and cranny of the dopamine universe.
Yeah.
We've learned how it works, how it can be hijacked, and most importantly, how to harness its power for good.
I think so. It's been a pleasure diving deep with you. I hope you feel empowered to take control of your dopamine and use it to create a life that's filled with purpose, passion, and joy.
I definitely do. As we wrap up, what's one final takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
Remember that dopamine is a powerful force, but you are the conductor of your own dopamine symphony.
Ooh, I like that.
By understanding how it works and making conscious choices that support your well-being, you can orchestrate a life that's truly fulfilling and rewarding.
That's a beautiful way to put it. So, dear listener, as you go about your day, think about those small, intentional choices you can make to boost your dopamine naturally and create a life that's bursting with joy, purpose, and meaning.
And don't forget to celebrate those little wins along the way.
Yes.
Every dopamine boost, no matter how small, is a step towards a happier, healthier, and more fulfilling life.
Thanks for joining us on this dopamine adventure. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those dopamine levels high.
See you on the next deep dive.